Who's the person in your life you can get into a deep chat with instantly? You know, the kind of one where you share something deep and immediately they open up alongside you. They've always got great questions and they don't settle for surface level. They're sort of a story seeker. You've probably noticed that most of their podcast recommendations are true crime or biographical stories. So take a minute, think about your friends. Yeah, that person who's coming to mind. Now, let's imagine you want to introduce them to Jesus. We think, for Talk With Me's, they're not after a perfect pitch. They want to hear what's really going on in your life and in your faith. And that's where their journey will begin. So let's hear a story from a student who came to faith in this kind of way and met Jesus through a story.
So one afternoon, I was doing this thing called Coffees on Campus. We just prep a load of coffee and we go out onto the street with some of my students and we share to people about Jesus and we get praying for them. These two guys walk over and they stop and they're interested in what we're doing. We share a coffee, we have a little chat, and I just say, hey, well, we're actually Christians and we love to do this. We love to just talk about Jesus, what God's up to, and do that over a free tea or coffee. And one of them is a Catholic. He really appreciated it. He was really interested and seemed to be engaging. And then his other mate, his friend, who's like stood a little bit behind him, had a kind of quizzical look in his eye and wasn't that engaged. And then suddenly he, plucks up the courage to ask me a question. What has God actually done in my life? And it's quite a striking question because not many people go that way and just ask a direct question. And so I just told him about experience that I had when I was a teenager about being met by the Holy Spirit for the very first time and how that impacted and sort of changed my life. And he suddenly, I was looking in his eyes and he suddenly peaked. It was like something was surprising to him or really interested him. And then fast forward about a week or so and I'm at church on a Sunday evening and in walks that student, not the first student who was initially really appreciating what we were saying, but this one I had this engaging conversation with. And he just shares a little bit what's happened in that week or so. And I'm totally shocked. I share my number with him and we meet up a few days later. And as we're there in a cafe, he just shares with me that day when I was engaging with him, telling him my story and how God had met me, how I was looking in his eyes, he said that as you were saying that, I could tell you were saying a truth and that you weren't lying to me. And he was like, I know when people are lying to me and you definitely weren't lying to me. And so it's been a real pleasure over the course of this year just to share life with him really, open up the Bible, talk about Jesus, and he's on a real journey of exploration, but it's been a real pleasure and it can just start from those interactions for sure.
If you love long afternoons spent in coffee shops, having deep chats and mulling over the finer points of life, you might be great at naturally walking alongside a Talk With Me. But the great news is that we all can. So here are our top tips. 1, if you invite them to a Christian event or to church, make sure it's followed up with a drink or a meal afterwards for them to process. They'll really value that. 2, invite them to events where people are sharing stories. They'll love that, especially if you're sharing yours. So don't be afraid to volunteer. And 3, invite them to be in a community and show them a community that deeply values each other's experiences.